$1.
Okay, so the rest of P3, we're going to do factoring special polynomials. If I have the difference of two squares, how does that factor? Who remembers?
U squared.
Oh, wait.
No, we're factoring it.
Oh.
How do I factor u squared minus v squared? Special polynomial. That one's an easy one. How do you factor that?
U plus V.
Beautiful. Easy one. How do we factor perfect square trinomials when it's positive? How do we factor perfect square trinomials when it's positive? There's a pattern to it. I'm going to have one small one and I have one large one, so. What goes here in these two spots? U plus V. What goes here?
Of a trinomial.
Perfect square trinomial.
I thought I think you're doing the sum of two cubes. The trinomial is the U plus V.
Oh, I'm making it, yeah. Oh, yeah, this is easy. Perfect square trinomial, sorry, I was looking up here. Perfect square trinomial is U plus V what? Squared. What is it, the difference of those?
Subtract.
Subtract. Like that, okay. What is the sum or difference of two cubes? That's this one. So it's U plus V, right? And then what goes in this section? What?
What are you doing?
I said I'm factoring U cubed plus V cubed. What is the pattern for that?
U, is it U?
Jeremiah, get in here, where have you been? It's U plus V in the first, yep.
U squared
U
minus,
squared.
UV, or plus UV.
No, for plus it's minus UV, and then it's plus what? V what?
V cubed, V squared.
V squared, because I have two V's there, a third V here, two U's there, a third U there. The middle cancels out because it's negative. Now, what about when it is the difference of two cubes?
U minus V.
U minus V, and then what's here? U squared, and then what?
Plus UV.
Plus UV, and then minus V squared. It's not minus, it's plus. These stay positive. Positive, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. Okay, so we're going to use all these special factorizations to do a bunch of these. Some of these are also grouping, some are also sum and differences, but basically your homework tonight is going to have like 1,000 of these types of problems on them. Not quite 1,000. All you're going to be doing is factoring. Okay, how do I factor 100 minus 4y squared? Nope. I wouldn't. What do you know about the number 4 and what do you know about the number 100? They're perfect squares. So what do you want to factor out to switch the sign so that's easier? 2. No. No.
Why?
Stop guessing.
How can you take a 5 out of that?
Take this by root.
No. I would like to factor something out of this so that it makes some.
Did you do 4?
No, don't, well, I don't wanna do, listen, 4 is a perfect square. 100 is a perfect square, yes?
Yes.
So I have perfect square perfect square right here. If I factor out something very simple, it allows me to factor this much easier. Not just a 1, a negative 1. Because if I factor out a negative 1 from here, it changes it to say 4y squared minus 100. What is this?
That's perfect square.
It's well, they're both perfect squares, but what is that called when it's 4y squared minus 100?
Why wouldn't it be positive if you took the negative one out?
I took out the -1 so that the 4 becomes positive, which makes the 100 negative. Because this puts it into a special formula for us. What formula does it put it in for us? Oh, a difference of 2 squares. Difference of 2 squares. You have to start to be able to recognize that it is a difference of 2 squares. So now, if this is a difference of 2 squares, I factor it with that -1 out here, and then what do I do? Those say cubes, this says 2 squares. What do I do? Yes, because you weren't here to start the class.
Why?
Thank you, Mariah. 2y minus 10, and then what?
2y plus 10.
Thank you. Guys, I need you to start thinking. Let's go.
How to fix it?
Here, I have x plus 2 squared minus y squared. What do you got going on?
Perfect square.
This one's a little bit tricky, but really it's not that bad. I have x plus, I have what, Maddie? I have difference of 2 squares. This is a square, this is a square. There's a minus sign between them. I have a difference of 2 squares. So when I factor this, I have to factor it like what?
Oh my god.
This should be x plus 2, right? And x plus 2, what goes here? Minus y, what goes here? Plus y. That's how you factor that difference of 2 squares. When there is already a set of parentheses, you have to use brackets.
Feel this one too.
Okay? So that is a simple difference of 2 squares as well. You just have to get your brain trained to see that.
Alrighty.
Okay?
You think so?
What about 16x to the 4th minus 81?
Take a 4.
Stop trying to take numbers out. Do me a favor before you try to take numbers out. Look at the first and last. Is this a perfect square? Is 81 a perfect square? And do you have a minus sign in between them? So what is it? Yes.
Wow.
So what goes here?
Crazy.
4x, what?
Square.
Minus 9, 4x plus 9, okay? I need you to look and see if there are perfect squares before you try anything on all of these tonight. If not, then factor things out, or then group, or do whatever. Look here. Do I have a perfect square here? Do I have a perfect square here?
Yes.
But there is a middle this time. So that means it's probably a perfect square trinomial. Because look, that number on the inside in the middle is what, 10? What's the square of x squared, like what number is in front of x squared? 1. So the square root of 1 is 1. What's the square root of 25? So 1 times 5 is times that 2 that's in the middle, and you get what? 10. So when I go to factor this, because there is a minus 10, correct? Actually, I don't need 2 on this. Then what sign goes in between here? Minus, what goes here? X, what goes here?
5.
And then I just put a,
Oh,
Square.
I see.
okay? Then I just put a square. Okay, look at this next one. I have a cube here, yes?
Yes.
Does 27 have a perfect cube? That's what you should ask yourself.
Yes.
Yes, so what is this then? Which one? The sign tells me
It's the U.
it's the difference. Difference of 2 cubes. Difference of 2 cubes, which means now I don't even have to do math. What goes here? X minus 3, because the cube root of 27 is 3. What goes here?
X plus 3.
No.
X.
X squared. Then plus what? Yes, 3x, because you take whatever this is times whatever that is. So 3x. And then plus what? Whatever, what number is the cube root of this? Square it and you get 9. That's how you do that. Okay, this one is simple. You take the cube of both of these, and that's what goes there, cube, cube. This part is whatever the cube of that was, whatever the cube root is, squared. So the cube root of this was x, so you square it, x squared. This middle one is this cube root times that cube root. And then this one is this cube root squared. Okay? Now, what about y cubed plus 125? Does 125 have a cube root? Yes, what is it? So this first set of parentheses should say, no, y plus 5. What goes next? What sign comes next? Minus on this one. Minus on this one, because you want it to cancel out. Minus. What goes in that next slot? 5y. And then it's plus what? 25. All of these, you need to ask yourself questions because you save yourself time if you know the patterns.
Can I take a picture of this after you do it?
Yeah.
Appreciate
Ditto.
you.
Okay, now I have 3x cubed plus 192. So we ask ourselves, does 3 have a perfect square?
No,
No. Does 192 have a perfect square?
probably
I
not.
don't know. But now what can I do from there? What do you think we should try to do?
Take numbers out,
Okay, so what number you want to try to take out?
a trace.
Okay, 192 divided by 3 is what?
64.
So you get 3x cubed plus what? 64? Beautiful. Now look, this is a cube. Does this have a cube root?
Yes.
Okay, so I can keep factoring this. I get 3, if they have cube roots, that means I have a pattern. What goes here? X,
Plus 4,
and then what here?
x minus
X squared.
X squared
what?
minus
4x
4x plus,
plus 16.
beautiful. This is how you factor that. So sometimes when I take something out, now I get it into a special form and I have to keep going. Always go as far as you can.
Does it always have to be a minus and then a plus?
Yes, the pattern is, for when this is positive, the pattern is plus, minus, minus. When it's negative, okay, when it's negative, the pattern is negative plus, plus. So it would be negative plus, plus.
It says plus.
When this
negative,
is,
negative,
when this is positive,
but you put a negative positive. You said plus, minus, minus.
yes, when this is positive,
Yeah.
plus, minus, plus, it should be plus, plus, minus, plus. When it's negative, it should be negative plus, plus. Okay. Now, 2x squared minus 5x plus 3, can I factor that? This isn't a perfect square, oops, this isn't a perfect square.
Not factor.
Can I take anything out of it?
X, no.
No.
Never mind.
So now I've gotta see if I can factor it into 2 segments. No, you have now to factor. This has to have a 2x and this has to have an x because it's the only way to break it down. I need something to multiply to give me 3, add to give me negative 5.
Multiply what?
Multiply to give me negative 3, add to give me negative 5 with a leading coefficient of 2. Is that possible?
No.
I'm trying to think, because the only factors of 3 are 3 and 1, right? 3 times 2
multiply by
is
2.
6. If I multiply it by negative 3, I get negative 6 and a negative 1 gives me, so it's not factorable.
You 2 times 1 and
You were right,
Thanks,
boy.
Lord.
Good job, Casey.
Oh, wait, I was right.
There's like 5 of those ones.
Nope. Okay. X cubed minus 2x squared minus 3x plus 6. What do I need to do to factor this? How many sections are there?
4.
4. Anytime there's 4, what do I have to do?
Break it up.
Let it.
Group it. Yes, break it up. Group it. I group this together, those two, and I group these two together. What can I take out of x cubed minus 2x squared?
X squared.
X squared. And you are left with x minus 2. What can I take out of negative 3x plus 6?
Negative 3.
Take out the negative, because remember, whatever you get, you want it to be the same as this. So if I take out the negative 3, I get x minus 2, okay? Now, remember, x squared and negative 3 come together to make x squared minus 3 is one of ours. And these two are the same, so they make 1. And that's how you factor that. Now, if this was a difference of squares, I would keep going. If this was a difference of cubes, I would keep going. If it's a sum of cubes, I would keep going. Do you get what I'm saying? Okay? So keep going if you can. So that's grouping. What about the other one? X cubed plus x squared minus 5x minus 5.
Taking x squared,
Move.
Take an x squared and then you're left with what?
x,
X,
And then what? What are you left with here?
1.
1 plus 1. What do I take out of here?
negative 5,
Beautiful, and I'm left with,
x,
X minus 1
no,
plus 1.
plus 1, because that was already negative. This comes together to give me x squared minus 5. These two are the same, so they make 1. X plus 1. Anything else factorable here?
No.
No. Final answer.
No.
Everything you are doing tonight is all factoring. I suggest using your time wisely in class so you don't have it over your long weekend.